For the overwhelming majority of my life, I lived like Jacob. I grew up in church like many of you did. And when you grow up in church, you learn how to put a mask on. When you come in here, you know how to raise your hands. You know how to give. You know how to volunteer. But many times your heart is breaking. You know the Christian cliches. How are you blessed and highly favored? God is good, and all the time, God is good. And all of those things are true, but they won't mean anything to you unless it's real. Otherwise, it's rehearsed cliches. It's practiced Pinterest quotes. It's practiced Instagram screenshots. I was all about achievements. I wanted to achieve. I wanted to achieve. I wanted my name in the paper. I wanted my walls filled with awards to show that I had done it. Because for so long, people doubted me. Because I was small in stature. I was always young. I always wanted to try to prove myself. And by doing that, I got myself into a pit. 2016 was the best professional year I've ever had in my life. Award after award after award. I landed on a magazine cover. And they did a 4-page spread on me. I was offered my own radio show. It's heard on podcasts and Spotify. It's heard in 50 countries all over the world now. But in 2017, my world came apart. And I fell into the deepest, darkest depression that I have ever known in my life. Why? I couldn't be Jacob acting like Esau anymore. I would cry at the gas station. I'd be sitting at Starbucks and just break down in tears. I'd be in a dark room in my house and I didn't want to leave. When I would go to work, I was just a zombie. I was there but not there. You ever been there before? You're there, but you ain't there. And I remember the day after Labor Day, September 2017, I walked into my boss's office and I sat down. I had tears in my eyes. I said, "Boss, I need you to do something for me." He said, "What?" I said, "I need you to fire me." I said, "I can't pull my head out. And you deserve someone in this seat who can get the job done." And he looked at me across his desk. He said, "Steve, I know you're struggling." He said, "But I'm not going to fire you. I'm with you." He said, "I know you'll get through this." He said, "We do miss you, but I know you'll get through this." You see, when you're going through hard times, family, you begin to isolate yourself. And isolation is the worst place that you can be when you're going through a hard time. This is where the enemy plays on your mind so hard. Because you believed the lies that he told you that you can no longer hear the voice of God. It's when you come with community that you can be encouraged. It's when you can become with community. When you cannot stand on your own, you stand on the shoulders of faith of somebody else until you can stand on your own. You let people love on you. You let people encourage you. Well, Steve, what are they going to think about me? Pastor Jody, can I say it this way? To hell, what people think, because that is the prison that got you where you're in right now. Of wondering what people think about you. I grew up in an environment and a culture that said you don't share your weaknesses and your flaws from stage. You're a leader. You be strong. You be steadfast, because people need someone to follow, and that is a load of garbage. People want real. People want vulnerable. People want transparent. To let them know that you struggle just like they do. Not pretending like we're so polished and put together like our stuff doesn't stink, because it does. You see, the enemy used people to bring me down. But then God sent a new batch of people to help bring me up. In 2018, the tide began to turn just a little bit. I spent a year in this. I'd go to church just weeping. And I never would have told you these stories the first 35 years of my life, because I had to be Steve freaking Sauceda who has it all together. When I got rid of that stupid thinking and began to own who I was, weaknesses, tendencies, flaws, shortcomings, I began to see God move in my life again. I stepped away from speaking and I stepped away from preaching for 1.5 years. I went to my church and I said, don't schedule me for anything. I need to heal. If you know sports, I went on injured reserve. Do you know what injured reserve is? Doesn't mean you're off the team. It means you go get healed so you can come back and contribute to the team. I said, I need some healing. I'm going to get some help. Started seeing a counselor 2.5 years ago. Still see him. Best decision I ever made. And so oftentimes in church, there's such a bad stigma that comes with counseling because you're taught you just need to pray through it. You just need to word through it. You just need to listen to Caleb. That's great. I'm sure they're still playing I Can Only Imagine from 1998. But what happens when Caleb isn't enough? What happens when the Pinterest quote isn't enough? What happens when the podcast isn't enough? What happens when that book is not enough? Friend, you got one choice and you got one choice only. I didn't get myself out of the pit by picking myself up off my bootstraps and just being a man. No, I relied on the man to get me out of the pit, and his name is Jesus Christ. You cannot do this on your own. The reason why you're so tired is because you're trying to carry the burden all by yourself. You are carrying a burden that you were never designed to carry. And I remember where I was in this city, where I was driving in tears, and I was crying out to God during this time in my life. Some of the best prayers I ever prayed were during this season in my life. You know why? They weren't practiced. They weren't rehearsed. They weren't pretty. It came from that deep, guttural place on the inside of you. It's just raw. And I was screaming out to God to the point that my voice was raw. I was crying. I had snot going everywhere. I was yelling. I was cussing. Don't act like you don't, okay? And I was yelling at God. I said, God, where are you? I've got all these fans all over the place. People who come and listen to me speak. They listen to the show, and I've got nobody. I have been abandoned by everybody. Where are you? And I heard God speak to me, Jody. Didn't come through the radio. It was that still small voice. He said, Steve, I've sent people to you, but every time they ask you how you are, you smile and you say you're fine. Why would they keep coming back? If that's ever been you, saying, I feel alone, how many people have you pushed away because of pride? Transparency is allowing someone to see inside of you and what's really going on. Vulnerability is allowing someone to see inside and speak into your life. When I was there, I remember I was on my knees at my house crying out to God because I couldn't get out of it. My poor mom, she's here on the second row with me. She's been my biggest fan. She'd come over. She'd put stuff on my wall to encourage me, and I read it, and I wanted to believe it, but I just couldn't get out of it. And one day I was on my knees, and I saw a vision, and I don't mean that in a weird, spooky way. I just saw this picture in my mind of a boxing ring. You know what a boxing ring is, right? And I was right here, and I saw a guy right there. Couldn't see his face, but there were stands all around me, like in an arena. I said, God, I don't even know what this means. What are you trying to tell me? He said, it's got to be you and me in this ring working it out. I'm not letting anyone else close, because if I let them in here, you're going to think it's them that saved you, and I want you to know it's me that set you free. And we worked it out. And there are times, guys, that it's not always in your successes, but often in your struggles that God will show you who you are and who He is. Sometimes it takes getting everything you wanted to recognize it's not what you needed. Will you guys put that picture up there for me? This is a picture of my wall in my office. I told you awards, accolades, and achievements. This is just part of them. Do I put this up here to brag? No. What I mean to tell you is this. When I was at the lowest point in my life, you know how much this stuff helped me? None. If anything, it mocked me. look at you in a pile of tears in your office. You can't even stand and go face people. Outstanding young man, my butt. This is how you feel. There's nothing wrong with this, but if this is what you're after once you get it, you're always looking for the next thing. Jesus is the only one that brings true fulfillment. When I walked away from preaching, you can ask my mom. I honestly thought I would never do this again. I never thought I should. I never thought that I could. I was like, I'm so broken, God. How could you use me anymore? I've been preaching for 23 years. I started when I was 12 years old. I preached my first message when I was 12. Stood in front of a TV crowd when I was 18 and did it again at 21. Traveled all over the place. My mom was my traveling buddy. And I said, God, how in the world could you use me again? I didn't know if I ever could. I even never know if I would or should. And in May of 2018, April actually, I got a phone call from a lady in Carlsbad, New Mexico. She said, are you Steve Sauceda? I said, not if I owe you a bill. No, I'm just kidding. I pay my bills. She said, a friend of mine gave me your number. I'm with Carlsbad Municipal Schools. The city of Carlsbad has never had a baccalaureate service in our city's history. If you don't know what a baccalaureate service is, it's the church service the night before a graduation in high school. She said, we've never had a baccalaureate. I was like, man, y'all a godless city. No, I'm just kidding. I didn't tell her that. And she said, our senior class wants to be the first to have a baccalaureate. And your name keeps coming up. Would you come and deliver the keynote speech to our seniors to be the very first one when we make history? I did my best to keep it together on the phone. And I said, if I'm not free, I'll make myself free. And I'll be there. And I dropped to my knees in my office and was flooded with tears. Because I am living proof of a Romans 11:29 that the gifts and the callings of God are irrevocable and without reproach. When I had given up on myself, he didn't. There was a group of people around me that would not let me fail. And I'm so grateful to them. And since May of 2018 to July 2019, when I finally decided to live as Steve, not Steve trying to be somebody else, God has opened 51 doors for me to go speak in the past 14 months. More than all of my life combined. Because I'm awesome and amazing? No, because he is. Amen. Shane says, it's better to look all right than to be all right, and to value our image over emotional and spiritual health.